What I saw in that car made my blood run cold. And when I learned the truth, I realized my son had just made himself a target for people who'd killed before and wouldn't hesitate to kill again. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The phone rang at 11:52 on a Thursday night. I know because I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling, counting the hours since I'd last heard from my youngest son, when the shrill sound shattered the silence of my bedroom. "Mom?" Michael's voice was wrong, tight, controlled, like he was holding back panic with every word. "Michael? Honey, what's wrong?" "I need you to meet me. Right now." I sat up, my heart already hammering. Michael was an emergency room physician at Riverside Medical in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Late-night calls from him weren't unusual, but something in his tone made my hands shake. "Are you hurt?" "What happened?" "I'm fine. But Mom, I need you to listen very carefully." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Park behind the old Methodist church on Clearfield Street." "You know the one?" "Yes, but don't come to the hospital. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Just meet me there in 20 minutes. "Michael, you're scaring me." "Mom, please. I'll explain everything when you get there. But right now, I need you to trust me." The line went dead. I dressed in the dark, my hands trembling as I pulled on jeans and a sweater. At 61, I'd raised 2 boys on my own after my husband died in a construction accident 15 years ago. I'd handled midnight emergencies, teenage crises, and the day-to-day terror of loving people more than your own life. But this felt different. The old Methodist church sat on the edge of Pittsburgh's north side, abandoned for 5 years after the congregation merged with another parish. The building loomed against the night sky like a ghost, its broken windows and crumbling stone a reminder of better days long past. Michael's silver sedan was parked in the shadows behind the building. As I pulled up beside him, I could see his face in the glow of the streetlight half a block away. Pale, drawn, his eyes darting nervously toward the street. I climbed out of my car, wrapping my arms around myself against the October cold. "Michael, what on earth is going on?" He moved toward me quickly, grabbing my shoulders. In the dim light, I could see he was still wearing his scrubs, and there was something dark stained on his sleeve. Blood. "Before you see who's in my car," he said, his voice breaking, "I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Michael, you're not making sense. Promise me you won't call the police." "Not yet. Not until you hear everything." My blood turned to ice. "Who's in your car?" "Mom, please. Promise me first. I'd never seen Michael like this. Not when his father died. Not when his brother David moved across the country and barely called. Not even during the worst shifts in the ER when he'd lost patience and come home hollow-eyed with grief." "All right," I whispered. "I promise. Now tell me what's happening." He stepped aside, and I saw that his hands were shaking as he reached for the back door handle. "Her name is Emily," he said quietly. "And 3 hours ago, she was supposed to be dead." The door opened. In the back seat sat a woman, maybe 35, with dark hair matted with blood, her face swollen and bruised. She wore scrubs like Michael's, but they were torn and stained. Her left arm hung at an odd angle, clearly broken, and when she looked at me, I saw pure terror in her eyes. But she was alive, breathing, watching me with the desperate hope of someone who'd already given up and found a reason to try again. Oh my God. I reached for the door, but Michael caught my arm. "Wait, before you help her, before we do anything, you need to understand what we're dealing with." His voice was steady now, clinical. "Emily is a nurse at Riverside. Tonight she discovered something that people have killed to keep secret." I looked from my son to the broken woman in his car. "What are you talking about? What did she discover?" Emily spoke for the first time, her voice hoarse and shaking. "The transplant program. They're not just coordinating organ donations." She coughed, wincing. "They're selling them to the highest bidder. And when patients aren't dying fast enough." She couldn't finish. The words hung in the cold night air like poison. "They're murdering patients," Michael finished quietly. "For their organs." I staggered backward, my mind refusing to process what I was hearing. "That's not possible. This is a hospital. There are regulations, oversight. which someone very high up is circumventing. Michael's jaw was tight. Emily found the records tonight. Real records showing which patients were targeted, which organs were harvested, which deaths were staged to look natural. I was working late in the records department, Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. I wasn't supposed to be there, but we were behind on filing. I found a flash drive hidden in Dr. Harrison's office, the hospital administrator. She touched her broken arm gently, tears streaming down her face. When I looked at what was on it, I couldn't believe it. Dozens of patients over the past 3 years, all listed as natural deaths or complications. But the real records showed they were deliberately overdosed or taken off life support prematurely, or... Her voice broke. I need to get her somewhere safe, Michael said urgently. Somewhere we can treat her injuries and figure out what to do. But Mom, if I take her to another hospital, there'll be questions, police reports. And if the people running this operation find out she's alive, they'll finish what they started, I finished, finally understanding. What happened to you? I asked Emily gently. How did you get hurt? I made the mistake of confronting Dr. Harrison. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know what I thought. That he'd have an explanation. That there was some mistake. But when I told him what I'd found, his face just changed. He called security. 2 men I'd never seen before. They weren't regular hospital security. They grabbed me, dragged me to the parking garage. She was shaking now. They were going to throw me off the top level, make it look like I jumped. But Dr. Michael was leaving his shift, and I saw them forcing her toward the stairwell, Michael said. She was fighting, screaming. I didn't think. I just ran over and told them I was her physician, that she was a psychiatric patient who'd wandered from her room. They hesitated just long enough for me to get between them and Emily. He rubbed his face. I told her to run to get to my car, and then I fought them off long enough to follow. Did they see your face? Do they know who you are? Yes. The single word was heavy with implication. Which means I have maybe a few hours before they come looking for me. For both of us. My mind raced, clicking through options with the efficiency I'd developed raising 2 boys alone. My farmhouse, it's 40 minutes outside the city, isolated. We can take her there, treat her injuries, and figure out our next move. Mom, if you help us, you become part of this. These people have killed. I know what they've done. I cut him off, my voice harder than I'd heard it in years. And I know what happens if we don't stop them. Now get in your car and follow me. We're wasting time. The drive to my farmhouse in Westmoreland County felt eternal. I kept checking my rearview mirror, watching Michael's headlights behind me, half expecting to see other vehicles giving chase. The property had been my parents' before they died. 20 acres of woods and fields that I'd inherited and never had the heart to sell. After my husband died, I'd moved back here, finding comfort in the isolation and the memories of a simpler time. Tonight, that isolation might save lives. I pulled up to the house and Michael parked beside me. Together we helped Emily out of the car. She could barely walk, leaning heavily against Michael as we made our way inside. I turned on lights, locked the door, and drew the curtains. Guest room is down the hall. Michael, your old medical bag is still in the upstairs closet from when you used to practice suturing on oranges. Despite everything, he almost smiled. You kept that? I keep everything. Now go get it. We need to stabilize her before we do anything else. While Michael retrieved his supplies, I helped Emily onto the guest bed. Up close, in better light, I could see the full extent of her injuries. The broken arm, yes, but also deep bruises around her throat. Someone had tried to strangle her. Cuts on her face and hands from fighting back. And the terror in her eyes that spoke of trauma no physical wound could show. You're safe now, I told her softly. I promise, we're going to keep you safe. You don't understand, she whispered. Dr. Harrison, he's not working alone. He couldn't be. This operation, it's too big, too organized. There have to be others. Surgeons who ask no questions. Coordinators who falsify records. Maybe even people in law enforcement who cover up investigations. My stomach dropped. How high does this go? I don't know. But the records I found, they showed payments. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe millions. Money like that doesn't move without serious power backing it. Michael returned with his medical bag and a bottle of pain medication. Emily, I'm going to need to set your arm. This is going to hurt, she nodded, biting her lip. I've had worse tonight. I held her good hand while Michael worked, his movements careful and professional despite the improvised setting. Emily didn't scream, but I felt her grip tighten until I thought my bones would break. Done, Michael finally said, wrapping her arm in a makeshift splint. It's not perfect, but it'll hold until we can get you proper care. I'm also going to give you antibiotics to prevent infection and something for the pain. No, Emily shook her head. Nothing that'll make me drowsy. I need to stay alert. Emily, please. If they find us, if they come here, I need to be able to run. The fear in her voice was so raw, so real, that Michael didn't argue. He simply nodded and put the medication aside. I went to the kitchen and made coffee, my hands moving on autopilot while my mind spun. An organ trafficking ring operating out of a major hospital, patients murdered for profit. And now my son was tangled in it, along with a woman who'd barely escaped with her life. When I returned to the guest room with 3 mugs of coffee, Michael was pacing while Emily sat propped against pillows, her face gray with pain and exhaustion. We need to go to the police, I said firmly. The FBI, someone. With what evidence? Michael asked. Emily said she found records, but where are they now? Emily's face crumpled. I dropped the flash drive when they grabbed me. I tried to hold on to it, but she shook her head. It's gone. Everything I found, all the proof, it's back at the hospital. Then we get it back, I said. They both stared at me. Mom, that's insane, Michael said. The hospital will be locked down. Security everywhere. And Dr. Harrison knows someone accessed his office. He'll have changed locks. Maybe even moved or destroyed the evidence. Maybe. Or maybe he thinks Emily's dead and there's no need to panic yet. I looked at the young woman on the bed. Where exactly did you drop the flash drive? The parking garage, 4th level, near the north stairwell. But I'm telling you, someone will have found it by now. Not necessarily. Parking garages are huge, dimly lit. A small flash drive could have rolled under a car, into a drainage grate, anywhere. If we're lucky, and we need to be lucky, it's still there. And if it's not, Michael asked, then we find another way to prove what's happening. But we have to try. I looked at both of them. Because if we don't stop this, more people are going to die. A sound outside made us all freeze. A car engine getting closer. I moved to the window, careful to stay behind the curtain. Headlights swept across the trees lining my driveway. Someone's coming, I breathed. Michael was already moving, helping Emily to her feet. Back door now. Wait. I strained to see the vehicle. It's a police cruiser. Police? Emily's voice rose in panic. We can't trust them. Dr. Harrison might have connections. It's Deputy James Wilson, I said, recognizing the car. He was my husband's best friend. He's checked on me regularly since William died. He's just doing his rounds. But my stomach clenched with doubt. James Wilson was a good man, or I'd always thought so. But Emily's words echoed in my mind. People in law enforcement who cover up investigations. Could I trust James? Or had my quiet, isolated farmhouse just become a trap? The knock at my door was gentle, familiar. 3 soft raps, then a pause, the same pattern James had used for 15 years. Mrs. Kelly? Helen, you awake? Michael grabbed my arm. Don't answer it, he whispered urgently, but Emily was already shaking her head. If you don't answer, he'll know something's wrong. He saw your lights on, she was right. I could see James's silhouette through the frosted glass of my front door, his hand raised to knock again. Stay here. Stay quiet, I told them. Then I walked to the door, forcing my expression into something normal. Surprised but not frightened. Curious but not guilty. I opened it with a smile I didn't feel. James, this is a late visit. Deputy Wilson stood on my porch, his hand resting casually near his belt. He was in his late 50s, with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too much over the years. Tonight, those eyes were concerned. Helen, I'm sorry to bother you. His voice was warm, apologetic. I saw your lights on at midnight and wanted to make sure everything was all right. You're usually asleep by 10. My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. Couldn't sleep. Sometimes the house feels too quiet, you know? I was just having some tea and reading. James nodded, but he was looking past me into the house. Mind if I come in for a minute? I've been meaning to check that back door lock you mentioned was sticking. Every instinct screamed danger, but I stepped aside. Of course. Come in. He entered, and I saw his eyes sweep the living room. Professional. Thorough. Taking in the 3 coffee mugs I'd left on the side table. 3 mugs for a woman who lived alone. Expecting company? He asked casually. Oh, those are from earlier. My neighbor stopped by. The lie came smoothly, but I saw James's expression shift slightly. Which neighbor? The Johnsons are in Florida for the winter, and the Martins are 2 miles east. That's a long walk for a cup of coffee. I forced a little laugh. You know me, James. I'm terrible at cleaning up. Those are probably from days ago. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Helen, is Michael here? The question hit like a physical blow. Michael? No, why would he be here? He's working tonight. That's what I thought too. But I got a call about an hour ago from Pittsburgh PD. There was an incident at Riverside Medical. A nurse reported missing. Some kind of altercation in the parking garage. Witnesses said Dr. Michael Kelly was involved. I struggled to keep my face neutral. Involved how? Was he hurt? That's what we're trying to figure out. Hospital administration said Michael left his shift early, seemed agitated. His car's gone from the parking garage. And when we tried calling him, he didn't answer. James watched me carefully. I figured he might come here. To see his mother. He hasn't. But James, if something happened at the hospital, shouldn't you be there? Why come all the way out here? Because the hospital administrator specifically requested we check your property. His voice was still friendly, but there was steel underneath. Dr. Harrison said Michael might be confused, possibly dangerous. Said he might have taken the missing nurse. My blood turned to ice. Dr. Harrison was already controlling the narrative, painting Michael as the criminal. That's ridiculous, I said firmly. Michael would never hurt anyone. I know that. You know that? But Dr. Harrison was pretty insistent, and he's got pull with the department. James's radio crackled, and he turned down the volume. Helen, I need to ask you directly. Is Michael here? The moment stretched between us. 15 years of friendship, of James checking on me after William died, of shared memories and mutual respect, all of it hanging in the balance. I made a decision. Yes, James's hand moved toward his weapon. Where is he? Wait, please, just listen to me for 1 minute. I held up my hands. Michael isn't dangerous, and he didn't kidnap anyone. He saved someone's life tonight, a woman who discovered something terrible happening at that hospital. Helen, James, when William died, you told me something. Do you remember? My voice cracked. You said that the most important thing a person could do was stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Even when everyone else tells you to look the other way. He froze, his expression conflicted. That's what Michael's doing. That's what he's always done. I stepped closer. Please, give me 5 minutes to explain. If you still want to call this in after you hear what we have to say, I won't stop you. But you owe William's memory that much. You owe me that much. For a long, terrible moment, James didn't move. Then his hand dropped from his weapon. 5 minutes. I called down the hallway. Michael, Emily, it's okay. Come out. They emerged slowly, Michael supporting Emily. James's eyes widened when he saw her injuries. Jesus Christ, he breathed. What happened to you? Dr. Harrison happened. Emily's voice was stronger now, fueled by desperation. And 2 men who work for him. They tried to kill me. Why would Dr. Harrison want you dead? Because she found out the truth, Michael said. About what's really happening at Riverside Medical. For the next 4 minutes, Emily told her story. The hidden flash drive. The records showing murdered patients and harvested organs. The attack in the parking garage. Michael's intervention. James listened without interrupting, his face growing darker with each revelation. When Emily finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at me. Do you believe this? Yes, completely, he turned to Michael. You saw the men attacking her? I saw 2 guys in security uniforms forcing a woman toward a stairwell while she screamed for help. I saw her injuries, and I saw the fear in her eyes, real fear, James. The kind you can't fake. And this flash drive with all the evidence, where is it now? I dropped it during the struggle, Emily said. 4th level of the parking garage, near the north stairwell. James pulled out his radio, and my heart stopped. But instead of calling for backup, he turned it completely off. What you're telling me, he said slowly, is that a respected hospital administrator is running an organ trafficking operation, that he's killed multiple people, and that he's got enough power to have Pittsburgh PD looking for your son as the bad guy. Yes, I said. And you want me to believe all of this based on the word of a nurse I've never met and a flash drive that might not even exist anymore. I know how it sounds. It sounds insane, James rubbed his face. It also sounds exactly like something William would have gotten himself tangled up in. That man never could walk past someone who needed help. Hope flickered in my chest. So you believe us? I believe that Emily's injuries are real. I believe that Michael wouldn't risk his career and freedom for nothing. And I believe that Dr. Harrison calling in a manhunt less than an hour after an alleged incident is suspicious as hell. He looked at each of us in turn. But believing you and being able to help you are two different things. If Harrison's got the kind of connections you're talking about, we can't just walk into a police station with this story. We need that flash drive, Michael said. It's the only proof. And it's sitting in a hospital parking garage that's probably crawling with people looking for exactly that. James shook his head. Even if it's still there, you can't get anywhere near that building. Harrison will have security watching for you. But I can, I said suddenly. They all looked at me. No one's looking for me. I'm just Michael's mother. I could go to the hospital, say I'm looking for him because he didn't come home. Walk through the parking garage calling his name, searching. I met James's eyes. And while I'm searching, I could look for a flash drive. Mom, absolutely not, Michael said. If they figure out what you're doing, they won't. I'm 61 years old, invisible. People see worried mothers at hospitals all the time. Helen. This is dangerous, James warned. Everything about this situation is dangerous. But sitting here waiting for Harrison to find us is more dangerous. I looked at Emily, at her broken arm and bruised face. We need that evidence, and I'm the only one who can get it. Emily spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. 4th level, north stairwell. The flash drive is small, black, about the size of your thumb. I was running toward the stairs when they grabbed me, so it should be within 10 feet of the stairwell entrance. What time does the morning shift start at the hospital? I asked Michael. 6 a.m. The parking garage will start filling up around 5:30. I checked my watch. It was 12:47 a.m. So I have about 5 hours before the place gets busy. That's actually perfect. Early enough that security might be tired and not paying attention, but late enough that a worried mother couldn't sleep and drove to look for her son. I don't like this, James said. If something goes wrong, then you'll be there to help. I looked at him steadily. You can follow me in your patrol car. Stay out of sight, but close enough to intervene if needed. That's what you do, right? Protect people. He studied me for a long moment, and I saw the war playing out behind his eyes. Duty versus conscience. Rules versus what was right. William would have hated me for letting you do this, he finally said. William would have done exactly the same thing, and you know it. James's shoulders sagged in defeat. If we're doing this, we do it smart. Helen, you drive to the hospital. Park on the 4th level like you're searching. I'll be in the garage too, but in an unmarked car. I keep one for surveillance. If you find the flash drive, you don't react. You don't pick it up immediately. You keep looking, keep calling for Michael. Then, casually, you bend down like you're checking under cars and you grab it. What if someone stops me? Ask questions? You're a worried mother looking for your son. You heard there was an incident and you're scared. Play it emotional, confused. Most security guards will either help you search or tell you to go home. Either way, they won't suspect anything. And if it's not security? Michael asked. If it's the men who attacked Emily? Then I move in fast, James said grimly. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Emily grabbed my hand with her good one. Mrs. Kelly, you don't have to do this. You don't even know me. No, but I know my son, and I know the difference between right and wrong. I squeezed her hand gently. Besides, someone's got to stop these bastards. The drive back to Pittsburgh felt surreal. My headlights cut through the darkness while James followed at a distance in his unmarked sedan. Michael and Emily stayed at the farmhouse. Michael's car was too recognizable, and Emily couldn't risk being seen. As I drove, I rehearsed my story. I was a worried mother. Michael hadn't come home. I'd heard about an incident at the hospital, and I was scared. Simple, believable, true even, in its own way. The hospital loomed ahead, a massive complex of buildings connected by skyways and tunnels. Riverside Medical served half of Pittsburgh and had a reputation for excellence. How many people had walked through those doors trusting the doctors and nurses to save their lives, never knowing they might be marked for murder instead? I pulled into the parking garage at 1:37 a.m. The fourth level was dimly lit and mostly empty, just a handful of cars belonging to night shift staff. I parked near the north stairwell, killed my engine, and sat for a moment, gathering my courage. Through my rearview mirror, I saw James's sedan pull onto the level below. He was there, watching. I got out of my car and immediately started calling. "Michael? Michael, are you here?" My voice echoed off the concrete. I walked slowly toward the stairwell, peering between cars, playing the role of the anxious mother. "Michael, please, if you're here, answer me." I reached the stairwell entrance and paused, scanning the ground. Nothing, just oil stains and cigarette butts and the accumulated grime of a public parking area. I moved in a wider circle, checking under nearby cars, behind concrete pillars. Still nothing. Had someone already found it? Was I risking everything for evidence that was long gone? Then I saw it. A small black object wedged against the base of a concrete barrier, almost invisible in the shadows. The flash drive. I forced myself not to react. Instead, I kept calling for Michael, kept searching, moving in a pattern that would naturally bring me to that spot. I was 3 feet away when I heard footsteps, heavy boots on concrete, echoing from the stairwell. I froze, my heart hammering. 2 men emerged, both wearing security uniforms, both built like linebackers. But I recognized the face of one of them from Emily's description. The scar running down his left cheek. These were the men who'd tried to kill her. "Ma'am," the scarred one said, his voice professionally courteous, "the garage is closed to visitors after midnight. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." I put my hand to my chest, playing up the worried mother act. "Oh, thank God. Security. I'm looking for my son, Dr. Michael Kelly. He works in the ER, but he didn't come home tonight, and I heard there was some kind of incident." "Dr. Kelly left hours ago," the other man interrupted. "You should go home. I'm sure he's fine. But his car isn't at his apartment, and he's not answering his phone." I let my voice rise, adding a tremor of panic. What if something happened to him? What if he's hurt? The scarred man stepped closer, and I saw something flicker behind his professional expression. Recognition? Suspicion? "What's your name, ma'am?" Helen Kelly." I gestured vaguely around the garage. "I just want to make sure he's okay. A mother worries, you know." "Of course." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "But you really should let us handle this. We'll keep an eye out for Dr. Kelly and give you a call if we see him." "Why don't you give me your phone number?" It was a test. He was stalling, studying me, trying to figure out if I was really just a worried mother or something more. I rattled off my real number, keeping my expression open and anxious. The flash drive was less than 3 feet away. "Thank you," the scarred man said. "Now I really must insist that you leave. Hospital policy. Just let me check a few more cars," I pleaded. "Please." "I won't be long." "Ma'am," that's when the second man's radio crackled, a voice I didn't recognize. "Security, we need you at the main entrance. We've got a situation with a psychiatric patient." The 2 men exchanged glances. The scarred one spoke into his radio. "Copy that." "On our way," he turned back to me. "Mrs. Kelly, you need to leave, now, or I'll have to escort you off the property." "Of course." "I'm sorry, I'll go." I walked back toward my car with slow, defeated steps, letting my shoulders slump. The 2 men watched me for a moment, then headed for the stairwell, their boots echoing as they descended. I waited until their footsteps faded. Then I moved, fast, quiet, straight to the concrete barrier where the flash drive waited. I bent down, my fingers closing around the small piece of plastic that held the power to expose a murder conspiracy. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The voice came from behind me, cold, educated, and utterly calm. I turned slowly. Dr. Harrison stood 10 feet away. Having emerged from behind a concrete pillar, he was in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of distinguished face that inspired trust. He wore an expensive suit despite the late hour and held his phone in one hand. "Mrs. Kelly," he said pleasantly. "I was hoping we'd have a chance to talk." My hand was still closed around the flash drive. Could I run? Scream for James? I don't know what you're talking about, I said, my voice shaking. I'm just looking for my son. Of course you are. And I'm sure you have no idea what that flash drive contains. His smile was gentle, understanding. But let's not play games. We both know why you're really here. Your son made a terrible mistake tonight. He interfered in hospital business. He helped a very troubled woman, a woman with a history of mental illness, I should mention, escape from necessary psychiatric care. Harrison stepped closer. But I'm willing to overlook that mistake. Michael is a talented physician, valued member of our staff. I'd hate to see his career ruined over a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding. Emily found your records. She knows what you've been doing. Harrison's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Emily is a paranoid schizophrenic who's been off her medication for weeks. She broke into my office, stole a flash drive containing confidential patient information, and when security tried to stop her, she attacked them. She injured herself during the altercation. His voice was so reasonable, so calm. That's what the police report will say. That's what the security footage will show. You falsified footage? I protect my hospital, Mrs. Kelly, from lawsuits, from scandals, from troubled employees who make wild accusations. He held out his hand. Give me the flash drive, walk away, and your son can return to work tomorrow with no consequences. And if I don't, then Michael loses his medical license. He'll be arrested for kidnapping and assault, and you'll be charged as an accessory. Harrison's smile never wavered. I have lawyers, Mrs. Kelly, a team of them. I have connections in the police department, the district attorney's office, even the mayor's office. I've donated millions to this city. Who do you think they'll believe? Me or a middle-aged woman repeating the delusions of a mentally ill nurse? Every word was a hammer blow, because he was right. He had power, money, influence. What did I have? A flash drive I'd stolen and a story no one would believe. But I thought about Emily's broken arm, about the patients who'd died, trusting that their hospital would save them, about Michael risking everything to do the right thing, and I realized something. I didn't need the whole city to believe me. I just needed one person. James, I said quietly. You can come out now. For a moment, nothing happened. Harrison's expression flickered with confusion. Then Deputy Wilson stepped out from behind a car 20 feet away, his phone held up, camera pointed directly at us. Got every word, James said calmly. Dr. Harrison admitting to falsifying police reports and security footage. Threatening Mrs. Kelly. All recorded. Harrison's face went white, then red. That recording is inadmissible. You didn't inform me I was being recorded. Pennsylvania's a one-party consent state, James replied. Mrs. Kelly consented when I told her I'd be documenting everything for her protection. Anything she records, or that I record while protecting her, is perfectly legal. I held up the flash drive. And now we have the evidence to back it up. Harrison's composure finally cracked. You have no idea what you're interfering with. The people I work for, they won't let this stand. You're both making a terrible mistake. The only mistake, James said, moving closer, was thinking you could get away with murder. He pulled out his radio, turning it back on. This is Deputy Wilson requesting immediate backup at Riverside Medical 4th level parking garage. I have a suspect in custody for conspiracy to commit murder. Harrison ran. He bolted for the stairwell with surprising speed for a man his age. James started after him, but I grabbed his arm. Let him go. We have the evidence. We have the recording. He can't run far enough. James hesitated, then nodded. He spoke into his radio again, giving a description of Harrison and the direction he'd fled. Within minutes, I heard sirens. Lots of them. You did good, James told me quietly. William would have been proud. I looked at the flash drive in my hand, this tiny piece of plastic that had nearly cost Emily her life. This is really over? The immediate danger? Yes, but the investigation's just beginning. You and Michael and Emily, you're all going to need to give statements. Probably going to be reporters, lawyers, the whole circus. He paused. Are you ready for that? I thought about it, about my quiet life on the farm, the privacy I'd cherished since William died. All of that was about to be shattered, but Emily would be safe. Michael would be safe, and no more patients would die for their organs. I'm ready, I said. The next 6 hours were a blur of police interviews, FBI agents, and questions that seemed to never end. James drove me back to the farmhouse at dawn, where Michael and Emily were waiting. When I walked through the door holding the flash drive, Emily burst into tears. "You got it," she whispered. "You actually got it." "We got it," I corrected, pulling her into a gentle hug, careful of her broken arm. "And Harrison's on the run. Half the police force in Pittsburgh is looking for him." But Michael's expression was troubled. "Mom, James, there's something you need to know. While you were gone, I went through Emily's injuries more carefully. The bruising pattern on her throat, the way her arm was broken, whoever attacked her knew exactly what they were doing. Professional. Military training. Maybe. Security guards don't usually have that kind of expertise," James said slowly. "Exactly. Which means Harrison didn't hire regular security." Michael pulled out his phone, showing us a photo he'd taken of Emily's injuries. "See these marks? That's from a specific chokehold. The kind special forces use." My stomach dropped. "You're saying the people after us are trained killers?" "I'm saying we might be dealing with something bigger than one corrupt hospital administrator," Michael replied. Emily nodded weakly. "The records on that flash drive, they didn't just show local transactions. There were references to shipments, coordinates, names I didn't recognize. I think Riverside was part of a network." James immediately pulled out his phone. "I need to call this into the FBI. If this is an interstate operation—" "Wait." Emily grabbed his arm with her good hand. "Before we got here, I remembered something else. One of the names on those files was Marcus Webb. The name meant nothing to me, but James went pale. "Allegheny County District Attorney Marcus Webb?" he asked. "Yes, there were payment records. Substantial ones. Jesus Christ." James sat down heavily. "Webb prosecutes major crimes in Pittsburgh. If he's involved, he can bury investigations, manipulate evidence, protect the whole operation." He looked at me. "Helen, that recording I took of Harrison, if Webb gets wind of it, he can have it suppressed. Claim it was obtained illegally, procedural violations, whatever he needs to kill the case." "Then we don't give him the chance," I said. "We go public. Right now, before they can stop us." "Public how?" Michael asked. I thought fast. "Emily, those records, are they detailed enough that a journalist could verify them?" "Yes, patient names, dates, organ recipient information, financial transactions. Everything's documented. Then we need a reporter we can trust. Someone with the resources to publish fast and the integrity not to bury the story." I looked at James. "You know anyone like that?" He was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. "David Chen, investigative reporter for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He broke that police corruption scandal 3 years ago, cost him friends, nearly cost him his career, but he didn't back down. If anyone will run with this, it's him. Can you get him here, now?" "I can try." While James made calls, Michael helped me make breakfast. It felt absurdly normal, scrambling eggs, brewing coffee, while we waited to expose a murder conspiracy. Emily sat at the kitchen table, the flash drive in front of her. "I keep thinking about the patients," she said quietly. "The ones in those records. They had families, people who trusted the hospital to save them." Her voice cracked. "And instead, they were murdered for parts." I set a plate in front of her. "Which is exactly why we're doing this. So it never happens again. But what if it's not enough? What if Webb or Harrison or whoever's really running this thing, what if they make it all disappear?" "They won't," Michael said firmly, "because we're not giving them time to cover their tracks. We're going to hit them so hard and so fast they won't know what happened." David Chen arrived at 7:43 a.m., driving a beat-up Honda and looking like he hadn't slept in days. He was in his 40s, with sharp eyes and the kind of skeptical expression that came from years of people lying to him. James made introductions. "David, this is Helen Kelly, her son Dr. Michael Kelly, and Emily Morrison. They've got something you need to see." "James said this was urgent," David replied, pulling out a recorder and notebook, "and that it involved Riverside Medical. So let's hear it." For the next hour, Emily walked him through everything. The hidden flash drive, the patient records, the attack, Harrison's threats. I showed him the recording I'd made in the parking garage. Michael provided medical context, explaining how the organ harvesting scheme would have worked. David's expression grew darker with each revelation. When we finished, He was quiet for a long moment. Then he opened his laptop and plugged in the flash drive. We sat in tense silence while he reviewed files, cross-referencing names and dates with public records he pulled up online. Finally, he looked up. "This is real," he said. "I can verify at least a dozen of these patients through obituaries and death certificates. And these financial transactions," he shook his head. "We're talking millions of dollars. Multiple states. International wire transfers. Can you publish it?" I asked. "I can have the main story online in 3 hours and in tomorrow's print edition." "But," he paused, "once this goes live, you're all going to be targets. Not just from Harrison or whoever's running this operation. From their lawyers, their PR teams, people trying to discredit you. Your lives are about to become very public and very ugly." "We know," Michael said. "Do you?" "Because I've seen this before. Whistleblowers get destroyed. Death threats, harassment, job loss. Even when they're telling the truth. Especially when they're telling the truth." David looked at each of us. "Are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" I thought about the alternative. Staying quiet. Letting the operation continue. More patients dying, more families grieving, all while the people responsible lived in luxury and power. "I'm sure," I said. "Me too," Emily added. "Then let's burn it all down," David replied, his fingers already flying across his keyboard. For the next 2 hours, David worked. He called sources, verified information, built an airtight case in journalistic form. James coordinated with FBI contacts he trusted, agents outside. Pittsburgh's field office who wouldn't be compromised by Webb's influence. Michael kept monitoring. Emily's condition and fielding calls from the hospital. Who wanted to know where he was and why he'd missed his shift. And me? I made more coffee, answered questions, and tried not to think about the fact that in a few hours, everything would change. At 10:17 a.m., David's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted. "It's my editor," he said. "This is it," he answered, putting it on speaker. "David, what the hell are you sending me?" His editor's voice was tight. "I've got the hospital's legal team on my other line threatening a lawsuit before we've even published." "How did they know?" David's eyes met mine. "Someone tipped them off, which means we've got a leak," James said grimly. "Someone in your office, the FBI, or Harrison's people have been monitoring us," Michael finished. "If they've got the kind of tech resources Emily's describing, they could be tracking phones, emails, everything." "Dan," David said to his editor, "how fast can you publish?" "If it's ready? 15 minutes. But David, if we're wrong about this, we're not wrong. I've got documentation, witness testimony, recorded confessions. This is solid." David's voice was steel. "Publish it now. Full story online edition. I'll take responsibility." There was a pause. Then, "Sending it to digital now. God help us all if this blows up." The line went dead. 14 minutes later, David's laptop chimed with an alert. He turned the screen toward us. "Breaking. Riverside Medical linked to organ trafficking conspiracy, multiple deaths." "It's live," he breathed. For a moment, no one moved. Then Emily started crying, deep, shaking sobs of relief and terror and release. Michael's phone exploded with notifications. Text messages, calls, emails from colleagues, hospital administration, people he'd gone to medical school with. My own phone started ringing. Numbers I didn't recognize. "Don't answer," James warned. "Not yet. We need to—" He was interrupted by the sound of vehicles outside. Multiple vehicles, engines roaring up my driveway. We all froze. James moved to the window, his hand on his weapon. Then his shoulders relaxed slightly. "FBI. Looks like 6 vehicles, maybe 20 agents." "That was fast," David muttered. "Too fast," Michael said. "How did they get here so quick?" The answer came 30 seconds later when Special Agent Sarah Martinez knocked on my door. She was in her 30s, sharp-eyed and professional, with a no-nonsense expression. "Mrs. Kelly? I'm Special Agent Martinez, FBI. We need to speak with everyone in this house, now." James vouched for her. Martinez was one of his trusted contacts, so we let her in. She was followed by 3 other agents, all wearing bulletproof vests and looking like they meant business. "We've been investigating Riverside Medical for 6 months," Martinez said without preamble, following reports of irregularities in their transplant program. But we didn't have enough evidence for warrants. Then your article hit. She nodded at David. And suddenly we've got everything we need. 6 months? Emily's voice was small. You knew something was wrong for 6 months? We suspected. We didn't know. There's a difference. Martinez's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry we didn't get there sooner. But now that this is public, we can move. We've got warrants being executed at the hospital right now. Harrison's financial records, computer systems, the whole transplant department is being seized. What about Marcus Webb? I asked. Martinez's jaw tightened. The district attorney is currently being brought in for questioning by federal prosecutors. Based on the financial records you've provided, we believe he was receiving payments to suppress investigations. So it's over? Michael asked. They can't hurt us anymore? The immediate threat is contained, Martinez said carefully. But Mrs. Kelly, Dr. Kelly, Ms. Morrison, you need to understand something. This story is exploding. It's already been picked up by national news. Within hours, you're going to have reporters camped on your doorway, cameras, the whole circus. And the people behind this operation, the ones who funded it, who profited from it, they're going to come after you any way they can. Character assassination lawsuits worse. Worse how? I asked. We found evidence suggesting this network extends beyond Pittsburgh. Possibly beyond Pennsylvania. You've exposed one node, but there are others. And they're going to be very, very angry. She paused. I strongly recommend witness protection. For all 3 of you. Absolutely not, I said immediately. I'm not abandoning my home, my life, everything I've built. Mom, Michael started. No, these people have taken enough. They've killed patients, threatened Emily, tried to destroy your career. I'm not giving them 1 more inch. I looked at Martinez. You want to protect us? Put agents on the property. Patrol the area. But I'm not hiding. Martinez studied me for a long moment, then nodded with what looked like respect. All right, we'll station agents here and at Dr. Kelly's apartment. But you need to be smart. No going anywhere alone. No talking to reporters without legal representation. And if you see anything suspicious, we call immediately, Michael finished. We understand. Over the next 3 days, the world went insane. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette story went viral. Within 24 hours, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, everyone was covering it. Hospital horror, the headline screamed. Organ trafficking ring exposed. FBI raids uncovered evidence of at least 47 patients who'd been murdered for their organs over a 3-year period. The transplant coordinator, 2 surgeons, and 5 administrators were arrested. Financial records showed payments totaling over $30 million. Dr. Harrison was found hiding in a cabin in West Virginia. He tried to negotiate a plea deal, offering to testify against his partners in exchange for leniency. The FBI wasn't interested. Marcus Webb resigned as district attorney and was arrested the same day. His office had suppressed at least 3 investigations into Riverside Medical. And the network? Martinez had been right. Riverside was one of 6 hospitals across the country running the same scheme. FBI field offices in Chicago, Houston, and Phoenix were executing simultaneous raids, dismantling the entire operation. Emily became a national figure overnight. The nurse who wouldn't stay quiet, one magazine called her. She gave interviews from my farmhouse, her broken arm in a cast, describing what she'd found and why she'd risked everything to expose it. Michael was hailed as a hero, the doctor who'd saved a life and helped expose a massive conspiracy. Riverside Medical tried to fire him, but the public backlash was so fierce they had to reverse course. Instead, they offered him a position on a new ethics oversight board they were creating. He turned it down and accepted a job at a smaller hospital across town. I can't work somewhere that let this happen, he told reporters. Not ever. And me? I became the mother who took down big medicine. Which was ridiculous. I'd just driven to a parking garage and picked up a flash drive, but the media loved the narrative. What they didn't know, what I never told the reporters, was the cost. The nightmares that woke me at 3 a.m., replaying the moment Harrison had appeared in that parking garage, imagining what would have happened if James hadn't been there. The way I jumped every time a car came down my driveway, convinced it was assassins coming to finish what Harrison had started. The letters I received, some thanking me, some calling me a liar, some threatening violence if I didn't recant my story. The FBI agent stationed at my house, their presence a constant reminder that the danger wasn't completely over. But there were good things. 2. Emily recovered, physically and emotionally. The hospital workers' union hired her as a patient advocacy coordinator, a newly created position focused on preventing exactly the kind of abuse she'd uncovered. She moved into a small apartment in Pittsburgh and visited me every Sunday for dinner. Michael met someone, another doctor at his new hospital, a woman named Olivia who didn't care about his newfound fame and just wanted to talk about their shared love of terrible action movies. They started dating, and I'd never seen my son happier. James was promoted to sheriff. The county recognized his role in breaking the case and his integrity in risking his career to do the right thing. He still checked on me regularly, though now it was more as a friend than a protector. David Chen won a Pulitzer Prize for investigative journalism. He shared the credit with all of us, but everyone knew the bulk of the work had been his. And 6 months after that terrible night when Michael called me, I received a letter. It was from a woman named Margaret, whose husband had died at Riverside Medical 2 years earlier. The death certificate said heart failure. The FBI investigation revealed he'd been deliberately overdosed so his organs could be harvested. Dear Mrs. Kelly, the letter read, for 2 years I blamed myself for my husband's death. I thought if I'd gotten him to the hospital sooner, if I'd asked more questions, if I'd been a better advocate, he might have lived. The grief was destroying me. Then your story broke, and I learned the truth, that nothing I could have done would have saved him, that his death wasn't a tragedy, but a murder. It should have made the pain worse, but somehow it didn't. Knowing the truth, horrible as it is, set me free. You gave me that freedom. You gave it to 46 other families who finally have answers, and you gave it to every future patient who'll never be victimized because you had the courage to act. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I read that letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face, and I realized something. I'd spent the first 61 years of my life trying to be invisible. The good widow? The quiet mother, the woman who didn't make waves, but invisibility hadn't protected me. It hadn't protected my family. It hadn't protected Emily or the patients who'd died. Action had. Truth had. The willingness to risk everything for what was right. That was William's legacy to me. Not the farmhouse or the memories, but the courage to stand up when standing up mattered most. 1 year after the story broke, Emily, Michael, Olivia, James, David, and I gathered at my farmhouse for what had become an annual dinner. We cooked together, a chaotic, laughing mess of too many people in one kitchen. We told stories, some serious, some funny, all of them part of the journey we'd shared. After dinner, Michael stood and raised his glass. To Mom, he said, who taught me that you're never too old, too ordinary, or too scared to do the right thing. To Helen, the others echoed, raising their glasses. I looked around at these people, my family, blood and chosen, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete, total peace. The conspiracy had been dismantled. The guilty had been punished. The victims had been remembered and honored. And somehow, impossibly, we'd all survived. To all of us, I said, raising my own glass. To truth, to courage, and to the fact that sometimes ordinary people can do extraordinary things. We drank and talked and celebrated life, because that's what you do when you survive the darkness. You hold tight to the light. Emily pulled me aside later as everyone was saying their goodbyes. I never got to properly thank you, she said quietly. You risked everything for someone you didn't even know. You risked everything first, I replied. All I did was help you finish what you started. No, she shook her head. You did more than that. You showed me what real courage looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. She hugged me tightly. You saved my life, Mrs. Kelly, in every way a person can be saved. After everyone left, I stood on my porch watching the sunset paint the Pennsylvania hills in shades of gold and amber. The farmhouse behind me was quiet again, peaceful again. But it was a different kind of quiet than before. Not the silence of isolation, but the calm of a battle won. I thought about William, about how proud he would have been, not just of what we'd accomplished, but of who we'd become in the process. I thought about the patients who'd died, and the ones who'd been saved by our actions. I thought about the power of one person deciding to speak up, to act, to refuse to accept evil as inevitable. And I smiled, because I'd learned something invaluable. You're never too old to become the person you were meant to be. You're never too ordinary to make an extraordinary difference. All it takes is courage, truth, and the unwavering belief that one person, one voice, one action, one moment of bravery can change the world. I'd changed mine, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Epilogue. 5 years later, the Riverside medical scandal had faded from daily headlines, but its impact remained. Federal legislation, nicknamed Emily's Law, now required independent oversight of all organ transplant programs. Patient advocacy positions were mandatory at every major hospital, and whistleblower protections for healthcare workers were strengthened nationwide. Emily was happily married to a teacher she'd met at a hospital fundraiser, and they just welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Helen. Michael and Olivia got married at my farmhouse, surrounded by friends and family, their joy so bright it could have lit up the night sky. James retired as sheriff and spent his days fishing and volunteering with at-risk youth, teaching them that integrity matters more than anything. David Chen became one of the most respected investigative journalists in the country, continuing to expose corruption and give voice to the voiceless. And me, I wrote a book about our experience, not for fame or money. I donated all the proceeds to victims' families, but because our story needed to be told. I wanted people to know that heroes don't always wear capes or badges. Sometimes they're nurses who refuse to look away. Sometimes they're doctors who choose conscience over career. Sometimes they're deputies who risk everything for friendship. And sometimes they're 61-year-old widows who discover that age is just a number and courage has no expiration date. I still live on the farmhouse, still tend my garden, still wake up grateful for another day. But I'm not invisible anymore, and I never will be again, because I learned the most important lesson of my life. When you stand up for what's right, when you fight for truth even when it's terrifying, when you refuse to let evil win through silence, you become more than you ever thought possible. You become unstoppable, and that's exactly what happened to all of us. We became unstoppable, together, the end. Now tell me, what would you have done if you'd found yourself in Helen's position? Would you have had the courage to act? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true stories that'll leave you speechless. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And check out the video on your screen right now. I promise it'll blow your mind just as much as this one did. Until next time, remember, you're never too ordinary to do something extraordinary. You just have to be brave enough to try.